Hey everyone, it's Joe Lyons here in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, and Jackie here from Copenhagen, Denmark.
I can hear it in my throat. My cold is gone, but it's lingering in my speaking. But today in our podcast, we were going to talk about, let's say you're new into automation and you wanted to convince your boss to let you, not just let you, don't be like Jackie and I, who even when they say no, we do it anyway, right?
Yeah.
But to pay you to automate. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you go about, especially if your boss, is we've discussed before why people don't let you do stuff, but how would you convince them, right? To actually to have it as a part of your time that you get paid for. And I think one of the simple ones is to somehow work out demonstrating the, I think it'd be twofold, right? One is how much time it would take you to do it. And two is the speed that you could, once you have it created, to actually demonstrate how much time it's going to save.
Yeah, and I'd say to me, it's just something I thought about here and now, because in the different jobs I've also had very different management, so to speak, where some of them I've had a lot of freedom on what to use my time on, as long as I kept up with deadlines and stuff like that. And not in all of them have I been pressed for time.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them there was a good amount of room to research and other different parts of what was needed. And yeah, so in those it was easy, but in others where you really are on the line with how you manage your time to actually get the stuff done, and it's a good idea to figure out how to perhaps convince your manager or whatever.
Jackie, you just rang a bell for me. I've mentioned I had two bosses that have told me not to automate something. One of them directly, the other one indirectly kind of said it. And you just rang my bell for it, because the one where I said it was like Friday at 4, and I start early, so I'm done at 4, and I dropped by your office and I said, hey, I'm gonna work on this over the weekend, automating this thing, because it seems to be a recurring request, and I want to automate it because it's going to keep coming up. And she went, she's like, am I not giving you enough to do? Blah blah blah. And I think that's kind of your point, was if I have any sort of bandwidth whatsoever, she wanted to keep me busy with other stuff. Even though I was saying I'm doing it on the weekend on my own time. Of course, if you're not getting paid by the hour, it's kind of a question mark in that. But that explains a lot of her mentality. I had never thought of it that way. Was she would have rather had me work on something else to just get a thing done, and not actually have a system, of course, or an automation tool for saving more time, which again I think is crazy. But at least I understand it now, right? Because it didn't make sense to me before. But I think when you said that, I'm like, you know what? That was where she was coming from. Was like, she probably was working over the weekend too, and wanted me, well, why don't you do this project for me, right?
Mm.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and that is probably also why I, in most of those cases, have decided to take a risk, might be a way of putting it, hoping that I could automate it and win the time before it was up by having automated parts of it. And that's probably also one of the things we have said multiple times before, Joe, is that if you just start by automating a small part and then do the rest yourself, right? Just this one here, you can make it quickly and it will save you a few, whatever, clicks or window switches or something. And then the next time you think, oh, I'll put this over here. I'll automate that small part. And if you have the task recurring, you will have those each time, where instead of using 5 days on automating something, you'll be able to use 2 hours on that day on automating that small part. And you would still be able to deliver on time. And you will just be able to do it quicker and quicker. And yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if you're familiar with the term piecemeal. but that's you do little bites of it at a time, and at some point it's all done. But you don't try to do. You've heard the saying, "How do you eat an elephant?" Right, one bite at a time. You don't do the thing at once. But yeah, I think it's a great way to. And that one, I think you're spot on correct. However, that one to me is more when you don't have permission, right? Mm-hmm. But even when you do, I think you're right. That could be an argument to say, look, I'm not saying I'm going to stop getting everything done. I'm just saying I'd like to spend 10, 15% of my time, each pass through to just tweak it and baby step into it and get a little more done.
Yeah, and that's probably what I was kind of getting at least with. Yep. If you can prove that you can still do your things and you're not locked away on some kind of automation over here, not getting stuff. If you, I don't know, I can't remember this saying, but it's something like, what was it? It's something about asking for forgiveness, not permission, or whatever.
Yeah, you nailed it. Yeah, that's been my motto.
Yeah, and to me, it's just like, okay, if you want to and you go and ask for permission and then say no, how are you gonna move on from there?
Yeah, then you're screwed.
Yeah, because if you then automate it and they either find out or you later tell them, then you would actually have gone against whatever. Yeah. It depends on your situation, of course.
Yeah, and I got, when I was a kid, I got fired from one job because I did that. And even though they went back and double checked everything and saw that I did everything, I had no errors in what I was doing. I was worked in a warehouse place, and they were getting a lot of shipments being incorrect. And I knew, because I had worked in I knew what I was doing. I knew it wasn't me. We're supposed to have someone double check our work, and I just sealed it up, and someone finally they saw that I wasn't having someone else check it. And so they had someone go through. First they said I was fired. And then they had someone, they had my friend go check it, and she's like, yeah, I went through every one and there were no problems. So ironically, they ended up firing their best employee, the one that actually did everything right. But I told him, I said, I understand. It's fine. I said, I wasn't mad. Like, I get it. I did what you didn't tell me to do. You told me not to do, and I did that. So it's fine. But I knew I wasn't the problem, but I'm like, no, that's the way it goes. So it's why you don't bring it up in the first place, right?
Yeah, and that's kind of why I said I took the risk of doing it.
Yeah.
And of course, if you're already stressed and if you're already pressed to the limit of your bandwidth, I see how to you trying to learn automation while still trying to get the task done might not be a possibility, and you would need to ask to maybe reduce whatever load is on your current table, whatever. I see that situation being.
Yeah, I'll even say, I'll add to that and say it's a little counterintuitive. So this is why I want to bring it up, is if you're new on your job, and more often than not, you're actually better off doing it the painful way first and getting that down, because the better you understand that entire painful process, the better you can automate it, right? Yeah. And if you don't understand it thoroughly enough, it's just easier if you understand soup to nuts what's going on before you try to automate it.
Yeah, and of course, if you've been in a place long enough, and the issue might be with the first time you need to automate something. Yeah. When you don't have anything to show that you'll be able to do it. If your boss has no way of time framing it, if you just ask for more time but they're unsure how much that is, stuff like that. So it is hard for me to really say how to convince your boss to let you automate, and showing them small scripts and pieces and stuff like that. See here what this scripting language can do. Probably won't convince them. It's just we, at least me and you, Joe, have shown it to a lot of other people over time. See here, watch here, how easy it is. And when you get past hotkeys and hot strings, it's a harder sell if you
Hmm.
don't have something really specific for them. That, yeah.
Agreed.
So
That the specificness, I was going to bring that up. If you can find, like, let's say both of us have done videos demonstrating stuff that we've done. If you can find someone who's, especially if they have a video, right, showing something close to what you're doing and say, this is the kind of approach I want to do. And you can show the time, like how, that's part of it. It's like documenting that how much time is going to be saved once we're done. That's not even mentioning as we go forward, I'll be faster and faster, right? I'm developing a skill set. But yeah, being able in some way to document the amount of time you're going to save, and bringing up the other one is, of course, the reduced amount of errors, right?
yeah,
I guess so think about the other benefits, one of which would be the reduced errors, the trackability, or having, like, creating a log file if you want, of being able to see what happened and when, the speed, the reliability. What else? I mean, those are the big ones.
sorry, you fell out just for a moment.
The consistency would be another one of just, getting it done in the same way. But yeah.
Yeah, I also managed to do some different stuff for my colleagues, right? So giving me that time to do stuff like that, I was actually able to do something that was pretty specific to my skill set, automating it, and then actually giving other people the ability to do it when I was not there.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did remove a part of my own dependency on me, might be a way of putting it.
Yeah.
Which of course in many situations could be viewed as being the wrong thing to do, but it also depends on which situation you're in.
Yeah.
If you have a good job security and you're doing other things than just that, I don't see no issue in it.
That's kind of getting to the one, I think it was one or two back we did, where we're having an expert system instead of expert employees. Right?
Yeah.
The system has the intelligence in it, instead of having people to have to hire people that know all this stuff.
Yeah, and I'm currently working on a system that's where one of the backbone ideas of it is to kind of bring some of the knowledge out of the heads of people and into a system where you can access it, and by doing it that way, having consistent work, having an easier time of employing new people and stuff. And the system is, for the most part, for the company. It's something that truly benefits the company more than it might feel like it benefits the workers.
Mm-hmm.
And I have, for a long time, I was looking for some kind of carrot to all of the people that I was trying to sell this. You need to do that, you need to do this, it's a good idea and stuff like that. And one of the only ones, and this might be a longer explanation, but it was that they're doing a lot of putting out fires when something unintended happens. And the system is a work order system where it's supposed to be predefined work. So it's maintenance or predefined maintenance that's supposed to be done. And the system keeps track of when it was done last and when it needs to be done again and what needs to be done and all this stuff. And currently we did extraction of some of the data, and it was maybe a 60-40 on maintenance and all of this putting out of fires. And for an employee, when looking at it, it's always Friday at 3 that something unexpected happens and they need to stay for 4 extra hours.
Right.
And the thing was, if our system had a better record of what needed to be maintained, when and how often,
Gotcha.
You would actually reduce the amount of stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. And to me, that makes a lot of sense, and it's something that the person on the floor can actually understand. Oh, I'll need to stay fewer Friday evenings. Okay, that's something people
No.
do want to get.
I thought of three others. One is right off the one you just said was is explaining, because a lot of people don't understand, especially with AutoHotkey. You're not doing magic mumbo jumbo, right? You don't have to worry you're going to break the program, right? You're basically interacting like a human does with the program. So sometimes that's a thing people get concerned about. And usually speaking, it's like, well, it's only can do what a human can do. It's not, black magic. Another one, which is hard to say, but have the confidence when you go in there to say, and that's where over the years, right? I have full confidence in myself that like I can take on I will get it done, right? That like it can work. Because if you go in, with like well, maybe I might be able to blah blah blah, then it sounds like you're taking a really big risk, right? It's like, look, it may not be 100% automated from soup to nuts, but it's still going to be, it'll definitely save time and money and consistent, right? There's a lot of benefits to it. So it's, I think that's an important one to make sure when you're prepped, when you go in there and explain, yeah, it's not rocket science and you can get something, right? It doesn't have to be perfect, but, and maybe, the cost would be another one, right? It's like, look, you're not talking about development time. It's not hundreds and hundreds of hours, right? Like some other, which is also around cost, where when people, let's say their boss had a need, their system, they wanted to get a new system because it doesn't have an API and they wanted to be able to do something. And between, connecting two systems together, and that was going to be $30,000 or $50,000 for that new software. And you say, well, you know what, I can go in, I can use web scraping and I can go to this one page and I can automate it to push a button and put it into the other one. It's not an API, but you know what, I can do that in probably like 8 hours. I can make something that's, pretty close. So you're talking a couple $100 or something instead of, 30,000 or more. It can, it's realistic, right? It can save an amazing amount of money. So
yeah, and I'd say a good amount of my learning time has been in work paid hours, and I've done it, as I talked about earlier, with simply putting in learning time when I had the task at hand. And if you can somehow make your boss understand that if you just give me a bit of leeway on how quickly I get it done, it can be with AutoHotkey and smaller tasks, it can be a matter of hours, perhaps, maybe 2 hours more or whatever, just to save yourself a few minutes the next time you get it. And over maybe a course of getting the task 10 times and you using, let's just say, an hour extra on the task, or percentage-wise, because some task takes a shorter time, but let's say you use 10% longer on a specific task each time you get it to kind of automate a small step. If it took an hour at the beginning and you use 10% extra or 20% extra on it, it takes you an hour and 15 minutes perhaps. But the next time you've automated some of it, you're taking out maybe something that took you 6 minutes to do. And now you re-automate something else, and it still takes you an hour and 15 minutes to do it. But now 2 of the things have been automated out. And when you have automated, let's say 5 of them, you can now do the task in half an hour. Just as an example. And yeah, you've used that 15 minutes a few times over. So it's always that matter of how many times do you get it? How long do you use extra by automating small parts of it? And if you manage to maybe automate it completely, it might be set and go. Just set it and leave it.
And the important one to add on to that, which is what you brought up earlier, is the instance you gave is just you doing it. But what if there's 20 other people that are also all doing it manually, right? Then suddenly it's an absolute no-brainer, because the magnifier is huge. The other one, which I know we've discussed, though, is the whole like my Excel function library. right? I started off with like 2 functions in that library, and I've slowly added. Now I have, I don't know, probably at least 100. But when I do anything in Excel, I go back to that file, and in seconds I can do a lot of stuff that, right, I don't have to keep reinventing it because I've already developed the code and I can borrow from my library. It's just amazing.
Yeah, and it should be as simple as thinking about a hot string. Okay, as soon as I've set it up, it takes me 2 minutes to find everything, get an editor started, writing the 5 lines of code that's needed to have a good running script that is able to execute what I needed to happen, instead of maybe making it input and thereby sending keystrokes to the input stream. I might want to use the clipboard, as that might be quicker or better or simpler or whatever. It takes a few minutes to make it, but each time I can save 12 extra letters to write out my email. It should be logical enough that those 2 minutes that you used at one point, and it scales for me with the normal confines of what AutoHotkey is used for most, which is automating small work tasks, automating small. To me, it works for all those scenarios. Yeah, you use a small bit of upfront development time. You might not make something that's commercially sellable to a big audience, but it's really, really good at doing this small specific task that you or your company has the need for. Yep. And it's as reliable as anything else if the code is done correctly. It's not like because it was done quickly, it's less reliable. It's not like you need a big coding company over here and you use meetings and hours and explain them, and you write up a document that explains what you wanted to do, and they deliver it back, and you get a lot of documentation, and who knows what, 5 developers made stuff, and it's in its totally own environment. That it's what for what we are talking about mostly, that's not what's needed. It's
very rare, right? Yeah. And
Mm.
when you do, that's a whole, that's a whole different process, because you're talking about really designing a program, right? Kind of thing of a big project. Yeah, that's very different.
Yeah, but to me, I've seen it recently with my own company, and those, they call it software robots, right? Where it's RPA kind of stuff, and it's been blown up to this very, very big with specific steps and specific areas that each piece of the company takes care of, and then it's sent off to someone that delivers something back, and we have a written agreement about what it's supposed to be able to do and stuff. It makes sense for a company to do it that way, but some of the things that I've seen go through the process, to me, seems so simple. That if your own workforce had just a little bit of education in that field, yeah.
I know Tank has mentioned that, right? That when he's working with Automation Anywhere and I think Blue Prism, whatever, but some of the simplest things that you can do in AutoHotkey, you can't do with those tools, and it takes a lot of work to do something you can do in AutoHotkey in a minute, right, in the script for it. And that's just the way it is, right? It's AutoHotkey, I think, takes a little more knowledge overall of being a programmer. It's not a drag and drop GUI thing like they are, but yeah, if you know, and I think it's a really good point. You don't have to look at both of us. Neither of us are programmers, right? I mean, everyone says we are. Everyone that watches our videos, they're like, "Oh, you're a programmer." Like, no, trust me. When I talk to a programmer, I'm so far over my head when they start getting into the depths of what they're doing. But again, you don't need to know that stuff, right? I think you could put together a solid 2 to 3 week course class that would give, and it's not all day, right? It's 2 hours a day. And that'll get you up to speed of just understanding the concepts and it's there, and then you just go find examples of it and borrow it and adapt it.
Yeah, totally. And we've talked at length about many of these aspects before, and it is, if you can just ground your own expectations to what people are supposed to do with the script or with the small automation piece,
Mm-hmm.
if you can analyze small parts of whatever it is that you usually do, you don't always need to think that all of it needs to be totally automated.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Right.
that's worth keeping in mind, that
Right.
if you, as the one that's doing it, just want to have small places where you can jump over where the fence is lowest, or whatever you put as a metaphor there, by automating those small pieces here and there, you'll give yourself an easier time. You'll probably have a more bandwidth to take on other stuff or learn more or whatever it might be. And if you manage to make something that's good, reliable enough, whatever you might say, your company might even benefit from it. And then it becomes a positive thing that can benefit whatever your career or whatever it might be. It's all those small steps that can lead up to stuff like that.
Back, that made me think of one more thing to get your boss to let you to program, right?
Yeah.
Might be to break down, don't do the whole thing, but find a very small bit and live in front of him, write the code of what, I want to click this box on this web page, and actually, of course, you solve it first. Don't solve it right in front of them, but solve it first and then delete it so you know how to do it. And then come in and just show him typing it out. Here's this line. I'm going to connect to the page. This one. Oh, it's that element. Great. I'm going to check that box and say, this is my goal. This is how I'm going to do this stuff. Right. Because when you make it that fast and show them, like, yeah, you lied a little because you didn't have to figure out what it is, but, it's not a lot, right? It's just showing them like it's a couple lines of code, right? It's not rocket science. That might get them to realize where's the risk, right? You're reducing the risk of the time. Just like, well, crap, so you spend an hour or two on this, look at the benefit I can get out of it, right? It's suddenly worth it.
Yeah. And as we talked about at some point, I did at one point document how much time I was saving the company, and some of it was estimates of me and a colleague standing there reviewing different members of the staff doing a specific task.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it takes him about 5 minutes to do that. Oh, this guy over here, he could do it in 4, and that guy over there, he could do it in 6. Let's just say we saved them 4. Just not overdoing it, but underdoing how much.
Right.
And then, but how often are they doing it?
Right.
Calculating or really asking, how often are you doing it? Oh, I do it 3 times a day. Oh, I do it 8 times a day. Oh, I do it 2 times a week or something.
Yeah.
And then just say, so they're using 4 minutes each time, 10 times, and so on and so forth. And I ended up with a great piece of white paper on how much time I had actually saved the company, and it didn't work. It didn't take, right? To me, from a logical standpoint, with the numbers on paper presented to the right person, or to the person I thought was the right one, even that didn't work.
No.
So you can think everything is great and dandy, but to me it's like,
it's always we're just trying to increase the odds, right? It's never a certainty, because there are people out there that we've covered reasons why people don't want things automated, right? I mean, it's not everyone wants it automated, but more often than not, I think when they see it and the benefits, they do. But you're right, and there are people out there that still say no for whatever.
Yeah, and to me, if you look at it as does the company want it?
Right.
Most likely the company would
Sure.
want it,
Yeah.
but does the person taking the decision understand it or want it, or
Yeah.
have
Or
whatever
understand how it
you...
aligns with those goals, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes they don't really realize it's bigger than just what they want.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. I think that was a good job covering that.
Yeah, that's great. So
All right, I'll see
go
you next
talk
week.
to your boss or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.